Imagine being one of the most famous people in the world under constant media scrutiny, and then suddenly, right in the middle of the live interview, you stand up and walk off the set. No warning, no explanation. That's exactly what Prince Harry did during his explosive interview with Jon Stewart, shocking millions and sparking a global firestorm. What pushed him to this breaking point? Stay tuned, because this story goes way beyond royal drama. Live television is known for unpredictable moments, but few expected Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, to walk off Jon Stewart's show mid-interview. What was supposed to be an insightful conversation quickly spiraled into an emotional confrontation. Fans and critics alike were left wondering what caused a royal to lose his composure on national TV. Live TV has always had a way of capturing moments that scripted shows cannot: raw emotions, unexpected responses, and sometimes outright drama. It is a platform where anything can happen, and viewers often feel like witnesses to history in the making. When Prince Harry, a figure often shrouded in royal protocol and guarded interviews, appeared on Jon Stewart's show, expectations were high for an engaging but respectful discussion. The Duke of Sussex is known for his openness about his struggles, from mental health to his complicated relationship with the British monarchy. So, many anticipated a candid but calm conversation that would shed light on his life outside the royal bubble. However, what unfolded was far from what anyone expected. Instead of a smooth dialogue, the interview devolved into tension and conflict, culminating in Harry abruptly walking off the set. For a man accustomed to navigating the rigid expectations of royal conduct, this public display of frustration was both surprising and revealing. It offered viewers an unfiltered glimpse into the emotional weight Harry carries, something rarely seen in the polished world of celebrity interviews. To understand the significance of this moment, it's essential to consider the context. Prince Harry's life has been a roller coaster since he stepped back from his official royal duties in early 2020. Alongside his wife, Meghan Markle, Harry has faced intense media scrutiny, a global spotlight on their private lives, and reported fractures within the royal family. His move away from royal life was unprecedented for a senior royal and sparked widespread debate. While many sympathize with his desire for independence and a more private life, others see it as a break with tradition that challenges the monarchy's image. Jon Stewart's show, known for its blend of humor and hard-hitting questions, seemed like a fitting platform for Harry to tell his story. Stewart is a respected interviewer with a reputation for getting guests to open up, often pushing boundaries without being overly aggressive. The stage was set for what could have been a breakthrough moment, an honest dialogue between a royal who wants to redefine his public persona and a host skilled at navigating sensitive subjects. As the interview began, the atmosphere was calm. Harry spoke openly about his philanthropic efforts, his dedication to mental health awareness, and the projects he's passionate about. His tone was measured, and his responses thoughtful, offering viewers a side of him that goes beyond the tabloids and headlines. But as the conversation shifted to more personal territory, specifically his relationship with his father, Prince Charles, and other family members, the mood changed. Jon Stewart asked questions that, while respectful, touched on the more painful aspects of Harry's life. He inquired about the reported tensions within the royal family, the media scrutiny Harry and Meghan faced, and the emotional toll it took. These questions, intended to bring clarity and context to Harry's decisions, seemed to strike a nerve. Harry's demeanor grew noticeably more tense. His answers became shorter, his body language guarded. It was clear that this was no longer just a polite interview. It was becoming a confrontation. The turning point came when Jon pressed further, challenging Harry's narrative and questioning how he handled certain situations. Harry perceived this as disrespectful and an attempt to undermine his experiences. What followed was an on-air exchange that many described as heated. Harry accused Jon of being unfair, while Jon defended his role as an interviewer committed to honest dialogue. Voices were raised and emotions ran high, a stark contrast to controlled environments most celebrities experience during interviews. Then, in a moment that shocked everyone watching, Harry stood up, declared he could no longer continue, and walked off the set. The cameras caught the stunned expressions of Jon Stewart and the live audience, who were left in silence. The broadcast cut to a commercial break, and social media exploded with clips of the walk-off, comments, and speculation. This incident became an instant cultural moment. Fans rushed to defend Harry, emphasizing the immense pressure and scrutiny he faces. Others criticized him for leaving the conversation and avoiding accountability. Media outlets dissected every word, gesture, and expression from the interview, trying to piece together what really happened behind the scenes. What makes this walk-off particularly significant is what it reveals about the intersection of royalty, media, and personal vulnerability. Prince Harry is more than just a royal figure. He is a man grappling with identity, family conflict, and the burden of public expectation. His decision to walk away may have been seen as unprofessional or dramatic by some, but for others, it was a deeply human reaction to overwhelming emotional stress. In the age of social media and 24/7 news, moments like these are magnified and analyzed endlessly. Yet, they also serve to remind us that behind the public personas are real people dealing with very real challenges. Prince Harry's walk-off on Jon Stewart's show was not just a headline-making event. It was a glimpse into the complexities of fame, family, and mental health in the modern world. As the dust settles, the world waits to see what comes next. Will Prince Harry speak out further about this moment? How will it affect his relationship with the media and his family? One thing is certain. Live television delivered a moment that no one expected, and it will be talked about for years to come. As the interview unfolded, what began as a relatively smooth and cordial conversation between Prince Harry and Jon Stewart gradually took on a more serious and intense tone. The early part of the dialogue had focused on Harry's philanthropic work, his efforts in mental health advocacy, and his personal growth since stepping back from his royal duties. Harry appeared measured and open, sharing stories with a tone that was both reflective and composed. However, the mood shifted notably when Jon Stewart steered the conversation toward a subject that has long been a source of public fascination and private turmoil: Harry's relationship with the royal family. Jon Stewart, a veteran interviewer known for his ability to balance respect with tough questions, delicately began probing the nature of Harry's family dynamics. The host didn't shy away from the elephant in the room: the reported tensions between Harry and his father, Prince Charles, as well as other senior members of the royal family. The questions Jon posed were direct, but framed to encourage honest reflection rather than accusation. Yet, for Harry, this was uncharted territory in such a public setting, and it was clear that he felt the weight of these inquiries deeply. The first question Jon asked was about whether Harry felt betrayed by members of his family. This was a question that had lingered in the background of many news reports and documentaries about the Duke of Sussex, but hearing it openly spoken aloud on national television brought a new intensity to the moment. Harry's initial reaction was subtle: a brief pause, a slight tightening of his jaw, but it was a visible sign that the topic was hitting a nerve. For someone who has long tried to maintain a balance between public openness and private discretion, this moment was a difficult one. As Jon continued, his questions became more probing. He asked about specific incidents that had been widely reported in the media: allegations of rifts during family gatherings, claims of misunderstandings and miscommunications, and the strain that the relentless press coverage had placed on Harry and Meghan's relationship with the royal household. Jon sought to understand not just the facts, but the emotions underlying these stories. Did Harry feel isolated? Did he believe his family had supported him during difficult times? Or had they distanced themselves? These questions required more than surface-level answers. They demanded vulnerability and candor. Harry's demeanor began to shift noticeably. What had started as a poised and articulate guest was becoming increasingly guarded and defensive. His body language changed. He leaned back, crossed his arms at times, and his voice took on a more clipped tone. The interview, which until then had felt like a conversation, was now edging toward confrontation. It was evident that Harry was struggling to navigate the fine line between sharing his truth and protecting himself from further public scrutiny. One of the most striking moments came when Jon asked Harry whether he believed his family had betrayed his trust. This question seemed to unnerve Harry. His response was measured but carried an undercurrent of pain and frustration. He spoke carefully, choosing his words with the caution of someone acutely aware of the stakes. The sense of betrayal was something he had clearly wrestled with privately for a long time, and now he was forced to confront it in front of millions of viewers. The atmosphere in the studio grew tense. Jon Stewart, recognizing the sensitivity of the topic, tried to soften the approach, but remained committed to his role of seeking the truth. He emphasized that it wasn't about casting blame, but about understanding the complex emotions and relationships involved. Still, the dynamic had shifted. This was no longer just an interview. It was an emotional minefield. Harry's struggle to keep his composure was evident. Moments of vulnerability peaked through the defensiveness, a slight catch in his voice, a brief hesitation before answering. It was clear that this was not a rehearsed or scripted moment. Rather, it was raw and unfiltered, revealing the human cost of living a life constantly under the microscope. The exchange also highlighted the broader pressures Harry faces as a public figure torn between loyalty to family and the desire for independence. He spoke about the challenges of reconciling his personal values with the expectations of royal tradition, the emotional toll of media intrusion, the feeling of being misunderstood, and the pain of fractured relationships all weighed heavily on him. For viewers, this segment of the interview was both compelling and poignant. It exposed the complexities of royal life rarely seen by the public, the intersection of duty, love, disappointment, and resilience. Harry's candidness, even as he struggled with his emotions, humanized him beyond the tabloid headlines. At the same time, the tension underscored just how delicate these family relationships remain and how difficult it is to discuss them openly. Ultimately, this shift in focus marked the turning point in the interview. The probing questions brought to light the deep emotional wounds that Harry carries, and the challenge of airing these wounds on a public stage. The defensiveness and struggle to maintain control foreshadowed the eventual breaking point later in the conversation, when the exchange had become too much for Harry to bear. In sum, the moment Jon Stewart moved the interview toward Harry's family tensions was a powerful and revealing part of the show. It highlighted the prince's inner conflict and the complexity of navigating personal pain under the glare of the spotlight. For many, it was a reminder that behind the royal titles are real people grappling with very real issues that do not always have easy answers or neat resolutions. What followed during the interview was nothing short of a rare and raw confrontation, a moment that exposed emotional intensity and personal stakes beneath what many expected to be a routine celebrity interview. The tension, which had been simmering beneath the surface, finally boiled over as Prince Harry confronted Jon Stewart in a way few viewers had ever seen him do before. Harry, already visibly tense from the probing questions about his family and personal struggles, suddenly accused Jon of being disrespectful and misrepresenting his story. The accusation caught the audience and Stewart off guard. For a moment, the atmosphere shifted from cordial conversation to something charged with frustration and vulnerability. It was clear that Harry felt cornered, as if the carefully curated narrative he had been trying to maintain was being challenged on live television. To the prince, the questions felt less like attempts to understand and more like attacks that threatened to paint him unfairly. Jon Stewart, however, stood firm in his role as an interviewer committed to honest dialogue. Known for his journalistic integrity and sharp wit, Stewart did not back down. He calmly yet assertively defended his line of questioning, emphasizing that it was his responsibility to ask the hard questions that many in the public were wondering about. To him, it wasn't about disrespect, but about transparency, giving viewers an unfiltered look at a story that has captivated the world for years. Stewart made it clear that he believed the public deserved nothing less than honesty from a figure as influential in public as Prince Harry. Voices began to rise. What started as a tense exchange quickly evolved into a heated debate. Both men spoke passionately, their emotions laid bare for the audience to see. Harry's voice took on a sharper edge as he tried to explain his perspective, his frustration mounting with each follow-up question. He expressed how the media, including some interviewers, had often misrepresented him and his family, contributing to a narrative he found painful and unfair. This wasn't just about an interview anymore. It was a confrontation about truth, privacy, and the challenges of living life in the spotlight. Jon Stewart responded with equal conviction, insisting that difficult questions were necessary and that evading them would only fuel more speculation. He reminded Harry and the viewers that public figures, especially those with royal status, are subject to intense scrutiny and that answering tough questions is part of the territory. Stewart's insistence reflected a broader journalistic principle, the public's right to know balance against the interviewee's right to privacy. It was a delicate balance that, in this moment, seemed to teeter on the edge. The audience, both in the studio and watching from home, bore witness to a genuine clash between two strong personalities, a collision of Harry's deeply personal experiences and Stewart's professional commitment to uncovering the full story. This was not a rehearsed or scripted segment. It was raw, unscripted, and emotionally charged. For many viewers, it was a striking display of human complexity, the prince struggling with his identity and emotions, and the interviewer standing firm in his role as a truth seeker. This confrontation also shed light on the immense pressures Harry faces as both a royal and a public figure. On one hand, he carries the expectations and traditions of a centuries-old monarchy. On the other, he must navigate the unforgiving scrutiny of modern media and public opinion. His frustration was palpable, a reflection of the emotional toll this dual existence takes. The prince's accusations weren't just directed at Jon Stewart, but symbolize his broader battle against a media landscape that often feels hostile and invasive. As the argument intensified, the tension in the room became almost tangible. At times, the exchange felt like a microcosm of Harry's entire public life, a push and pull between openness and guardedness, between vulnerability and self-protection. The emotional stakes were high, and neither party seemed willing to back down. This was a moment of truth, where the polished veneer of celebrity interviews gave way to something much more human. The rare nature of this confrontation lies in its transparency. Celebrity interviews, especially involving royals, are usually carefully managed affairs, with topics pre-approved and responses vetted. Yet here on live television, viewers saw Harry's defenses crumble, his emotions surface, and frustration spill over. Jon Stewart, for his part, maintained his professionalism, refusing to let the conversation become evasive or superficial. Their clash was not about winning or losing, but about the raw reality of telling a complicated story under intense scrutiny. This exchange left a lasting impression on everyone who witnessed it. For some, it was a reminder that public figures are people first, with complex emotions and vulnerabilities. For others, it underscored the difficult role journalists play in balancing sensitivity with the need for transparency. The argument encapsulated a moment where personal pain met public accountability, creating a powerful, if uncomfortable, spectacle. In the aftermath, many viewers debated who was right. Some sympathized with Harry's frustration and saw his walk-off as a brave refusal to be mischaracterized. Others felt Jon Stewart was justified in pressing for answers that millions of people wanted to hear. Regardless of where one stands, it's clear that this confrontation revealed much about the realities of fame, family conflict, and media scrutiny in the 21st century. Ultimately, this on-air clash between Prince Harry and Jon Stewart was more than just a heated interview moment. It was an emotional revelation, a glimpse into the intense pressures faced by a man trying to redefine himself amid relentless public gaze. It reminded everyone that behind every headline is a deeply human story, full of contradictions, struggles, and the search for understanding. The tension in the studio had been steadily building throughout the interview, a slow burn that escalated with every probing question and guarded response. For viewers at home and a live audience in the studio, it was clear that Prince Harry was struggling under the weight of the conversation. What began as a composed discussion gradually morphed into something far more fraught, a charged atmosphere thick with emotional strain and unspoken frustration. And then, without warning, the moment everyone had been anticipating or fearing arrived. Harry abruptly stood up from his seat. The sudden movement cut through the mounting tension like a sharp knife. For a second, the audience was silent, unsure if they had misread the moment. Then, with a steady voice but unmistakable finality, Harry announced he could no longer continue the interview under such intense scrutiny. His word hung heavy in the air, signaling not just an end to the conversation, but a decisive and dramatic rupture in what had already been a difficult exchange. The walk-off was striking not only for its unexpectedness, but also for the raw vulnerability it revealed. Here was a prince, a man born into centuries of tradition and expectation, openly rejecting the very public platform he had willingly stepped onto minutes earlier. The act of standing and leaving mid-interview conveyed volumes about the emotional and psychological pressures he faced. It was a physical manifestation of his frustration, a refusal to be further pulled into a conversation that had clearly become overwhelming. Jon Stewart's reaction was immediate but measured. For a brief moment, he sat frozen, processing what had just happened. The audience, too, was stunned, their expressions a mixture of surprise and disbelief. Live television is unpredictable, but such a dramatic and public departure was rare, especially from someone of Harry's stature. Cameras remained rolling, capturing the stunned silence as Harry exited the stage, leaving behind a room filled with awkward tension and unanswered questions. The broadcast cut to a commercial break, but the impact of that moment rippled far beyond the studio. Within minutes, clips of Harry's walk-off were circulating on social media platforms, shared and reshared by millions around the world. News outlets scrambled to report on the incident, headlines flashing across screens describing the walk-off as shocking, unprecedented, and a royal rebellion. The story quickly became a viral sensation, igniting a firestorm of online discussions, debates, and memes. Viewers flooded social media with their reactions. Some expressed sympathy, praising Harry for standing up for himself and refusing to endure what they saw as hostile questioning. They argued that the prince had been pushed too far and that his walk-off was a brave assertion of boundaries in a world that often demands too much from public figures. For these supporters, the moment humanized Harry in a way that polished interviews rarely do. It showed a man unwilling to be reduced to a soundbite or a headline. On the other side, critics accused Harry of being unprofessional and evasive. They argued that, as a public figure, especially one of royal lineage, he had a responsibility to face difficult questions with grace and composure. To them, walking off was a sign of weakness, an inability to handle scrutiny, and a missed opportunity to clear up misconceptions or share a side of the story. The polarization of opinion underscored how charged the situation had become and how deeply divided public sentiment was regarding Harry's choices. Media analysts and commentators dissected the walk-off extensively. Some framed it as a cultural moment reflecting broader tensions about mental health, privacy, and the role of the media in shaping public narratives. Others viewed it through the lens of royal protocol and the expectations placed on members of the monarchy. The incident sparked conversations about how celebrities and royals alike navigate the delicate balance between transparency and personal boundaries. Within hours, the walk-off dominated news cycles globally. Television networks ran special segments analyzing the interview, with experts weighing in on what led to breakdown and what it might mean for Harry's public image. The story was trending on virtually every social media platform, with hashtags like #HarryWalkoff, #RoyalDrama, and #Jon Stewart interview trending worldwide. The intensity of the response highlighted how invested people were in Harry's story and how much resonance the moment had beyond the interview itself. Behind the scenes, speculation swirled about what went on before and after the cameras stopped rolling. Insiders hinted at tense exchanges and last-minute disagreements over the interview's direction. Some suggested that Harry had agreed to the appearance hoping for a controlled platform, but found the questions too invasive once live. Others wondered whether his team had anticipated the possibility of such a reaction, but were unprepared for the scale of the fallout. For Jon Stewart, the walk-off was a career-defining moment, one that tested his skills as an interviewer and his ability to handle volatile situations. In later statements, Stewart expressed regret that the interview ended abruptly, but maintained that his intent was to engage honestly and respectfully. He acknowledged the difficulty of navigating such a sensitive subject, particularly with someone as emotionally invested as Harry. For Prince Harry, the walk-off was a public declaration of limits. It sent a clear message that, despite his willingness to engage with the media, there remain boundaries he is unwilling to cross. It also underscored the immense personal cost of living under relentless public scrutiny and the toll it takes on mental health and personal dignity. As the dust settled, the walk-off became more than just a moment of on-air drama. It became a symbol of the complex intersection of fame, family, mental health, and media pressure in the modern age. It sparked dialogue not only about Harry's individual journey, but also about broader cultural questions surrounding celebrity and privacy. In the weeks that followed, the walk-off remained a defining moment in Harry's public narrative. It was referenced in subsequent interviews, debated in opinion columns, and discussed in countless podcasts and panel shows. For many, it was a moment of empathy and understanding. For others, a cautionary tale about the challenges of public life. Ultimately, Prince Harry's walk-off on Jon Stewart's show was a powerful reminder that behind every headline is a person grappling with their own limits and emotions. It was a dramatic, unfiltered glimpse into the realities of life in the spotlight, an unforgettable moment that captured the world's attention and left a lasting impression on all who witnessed it. In the days following the highly charged interview between Prince Harry and Jon Stewart, media outlets around the world dissected every detail of the exchange, offering diverse and often conflicting perspectives on the dramatic walk-off. The incident quickly became a focal point for discussions not only about Harry's personal struggles, but also about larger themes of privacy, mental health, and the demanding nature of modern celebrity life. For some commentators and fans, Harry's emotional response was both understandable and relatable. These voices emphasize the immense pressure the Duke of Sussex has endured over the years, pressure stemming from his royal lineage, intense media scrutiny, and the emotional toll of navigating family conflicts in the public eye. They highlighted that the interview laid bare the vulnerability of a man who has often been portrayed through headlines and tabloids rather than his own words. Many expressed sympathy, suggesting that Harry's decision to walk away was an act of self-preservation rather than avoidance. For them, this moment humanized a figure who is often seen only through the lens of royal duty and celebrity. Mental health advocates and experts also weighed in, noting that Harry's reaction could serve as a critical reminder of the importance of emotional well-being, especially for those constantly in the spotlight. They praised the walk-off as a boundary-setting moment, an acknowledgement that even public figures need space to protect their mental health when conversations become overwhelming or invasive. These commentators pointed to the ongoing global conversations about mental health awareness, seeing Harry's actions as part of a broader cultural shift toward prioritizing emotional honesty and self-care, even in high-pressure situations. On the other hand, critics of Harry's walk-off voiced frustration and disappointment. Some argued that, as a public figure with a platform to share his story, Harry had a responsibility to face difficult questions, even when uncomfortable. They claimed that walking away mid-interview came across as evasive and unprofessional, and that it deprived the audience of the clarity and accountability they deserved. For these critics, the moment was a missed opportunity for Harry to address misconceptions and engage in a meaningful dialogue. Some questioned whether Harry's actions undermined his credibility and suggested that public figures must be prepared to engage with scrutiny as part of their role. Media outlets themselves were divided. Some praised Jon Stewart's interviewing style for pushing beyond surface-level discussion, noting that tough questions are necessary for meaningful interviews. Others debated whether Stewart's approach crossed a line into insensitivity, especially given Harry's history of mental health struggles and family challenges. Editorials and opinion pieces flooded newspapers and online platforms, analyzing not just the content of the interview, but the broader ethics of celebrity journalism. This discourse opened up deeper questions about the balance between public interest and personal boundaries, a balance that remains elusive in the age of 24/7 media coverage and social media amplification. Jon Stewart, reflecting on the incident in subsequent interviews, expressed his disappointment that the conversation ended abruptly. He acknowledged the emotional intensity of the moment and empathized with Harry's struggles, recognizing that his guest was dealing with a complex web of personal issues. Stewart emphasized that his intention had always been to facilitate an honest and respectful dialogue, not to antagonize or provoke. He described the experience as a reminder of the challenges interviewers face when navigating sensitive topics with high-profile guests who carry heavy emotional burdens. Stewart's comments were generally seen as measured and understanding, helping to temper some of the backlash directed at him. Meanwhile, the British royal family, known for its strict privacy and control over public messaging, maintained an official silence on the matter. While no formal statements were issued, insiders reported that palace officials were closely monitoring the fallout. The family's silence fueled speculation, as observers debated whether the walk-off might exacerbate existing tensions or prompt a recalibration of how the royals engage with media and public discourse. The incident underscored the ongoing challenges the monarchy faces in adapting to modern media realities while preserving tradition and discretion. The aftermath of the interview also sparked a wider societal conversation about the cost of fame and the nature of celebrity culture. The walk-off highlighted how public figures, especially those with global recognition, are often trapped in a paradoxical existence. expected to be open and accessible to their audiences, yet punished when they reveal their vulnerabilities or push back against intrusive questioning. Discussions emerge about how media and audiences might better respect personal boundaries and mental health needs without sacrificing accountability or transparency. Social media platforms became arenas for these debates, with hashtags related to the interview trending for days. Fans and critics alike use Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook to share opinions, create memes, and post video clips, fueling ongoing engagement. Influencers and mental health advocates weighed in, using the incident as a teachable moment about empathy and the pressures of public life. The viral nature of the conversation ensured that the interview's impact extended far beyond traditional news outlets, reaching younger and more diverse audiences. In many ways, the walk-off marked one of the most dramatic and talked-about moments in recent celebrity interview history. It forced a reckoning with difficult questions about the ethics of journalism, the humanity of public figures, and the intersection of personal pain with public curiosity. The incident invited viewers to consider the price that fame exacts and whether society as a whole is prepared to support emotional honesty without judgment. As the story continued to unfold, it became clear that the interview was more than just a single event. It was a catalyst for broader cultural reflection. For Prince Harry, it represented a defining moment in his ongoing journey to define his identity on his own terms. For the media and public, it served as a reminder that behind every headline lies a complex human story, deserving of both scrutiny and compassion. Prince Harry's walk-off from Jon Stewart showed peeled-back layers of royal life that are rarely, if ever, exposed to the public eye. For decades, the British monarchy has carefully curated its image, projecting a sense of tradition, stability, and stoicism. The royals are expected to maintain composure in the face of scrutiny, to uphold the dignity of centuries-old institutions, and to embody an almost mythical ideal of grace under pressure. Yet, Harry's sudden departure from the interview shattered this carefully constructed facade, revealing a deeply human and vulnerable side of one of the most scrutinized figures in the world. This moment was significant because it showed Harry not as a prince bound by protocol and ceremony, but as a man grappling with his identity in a complex and unforgiving public arena. Throughout his life, Harry has been caught between two worlds, one defined by royal tradition and public expectation, and the other by his personal desires for freedom, privacy, and authenticity. His walk-off was a dramatic expression of this internal struggle, a refusal to be boxed in by roles and narratives imposed by others. In many ways, the incident highlighted the enormous burdens that come with being born into the royal family, especially in today's hyperconnected media landscape. Every word, gesture, and appearance is scrutinized and dissected by millions, often without context or compassion. For Harry, this constant spotlight has been both a platform and a prison. His walk-off was a moment of reclaiming agency, a way to say, I am more than what the headlines say, and I won't be defined solely by public perception. It was a powerful reminder that behind the titles and the pageantry lies a person with real emotions, vulnerabilities, and limits. Whether one views Harry as a victim of relentless media pressure or as a fighter bravely challenging the status quo, the walk-off resonates on a deeply human level. It invites empathy by showing that even those who seem to have it all are not immune to pain, frustration, and exhaustion. The public often forgets that royals, despite their privilege to walk off, also underscore the changing dynamics of fame and privacy in the modern age. Harry's generation of royals is navigating uncharted territory, balancing tradition with modern values, duty with personal happiness, and public roles with private lives. His refusal to continue the interview was a stark statement about the need to protect one's mental health amid the pressures of fame. It added to ongoing global conversations about the importance of setting boundaries and respecting personal well-being. Even when in the public eye, this moment also challenges the media and audiences to rethink how they engage with public figures. The spectacle of the walk-off forced viewers to confront the costs of relentless scrutiny, not just for Harry, but for countless others who live their lives in public view. It is a call for greater empathy and understanding, recognizing that the quest for truth and transparency must be balanced with respect for human dignity. In the aftermath, the world's eyes have remained fixed on Prince Harry, watching closely to see how he will navigate the fallout. Will this moment mark a turning point in how he manages his public image and personal boundaries? Will it lead to more open conversations about mental health and the pressures faced by those in the spotlight? Or will it deepen existing divides between Harry and the institutions that shaped his early life? Whatever the answers, the walk-off is a defining chapter in Harry's evolving narrative. It encapsulates a tension between legacy and individuality, between public duty and private truth. It reminds us that even in the most gilded palaces, the human experience remains complex and imperfect. For many, this episode is not just about a single interview or a dramatic exit. It is about witnessing a man reclaim his story on his own terms. It is about the courage to step away from scripted roles and confront uncomfortable realities. It is about the universal struggle to be seen and heard authentically beyond labels and expectations. As the world continues to watch, the walk-off serves as a poignant symbol of transformation. It invites us all to consider the ways in which we too might seek to balance our public personas with our private selves, and the importance of compassion in those journeys. In revealing his vulnerability so publicly, Prince Harry has offered a rare glimpse into pressures of modern royalty and the enduring challenge of staying true to oneself amid extraordinary circumstances. Ultimately, this moment transcends celebrity gossip or royal intrigue. It touches on fundamental questions about identity, resilience, and the human spirit. Prince Harry's walk-off was not just a dramatic television moment. It was a powerful reminder that beneath the headlines and titles, we are all navigating complexities of life, striving for understanding, connection, and a sense of belonging. The world will undoubtedly continue to follow Harry's journey with intense interest and varying opinions. But this moment, the moment he stood up and walked away, will remain etched in public memory as a defining act of vulnerability, strength, and a relentless quest for authenticity.